Okay, Pirkei Eliezer, Perek Gimel. We're in the middle of Perek Gimel. In your edition, it's on page Chav Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. So we're talking about, last week we discussed things that Hashem created before He created the world. We had 7 things that Hashem created before He created the world. So now we're going to discuss at least the first day, what Hashem created on the first day, and then we'll see what we're going to discuss after that. Shmeina Dvarim Nivru B'Yom Rishon. Hashem created 8 things on the first day of creation. Ve'elohein, and these are the 8 things, and they're all derived from the first 2 psukim in Chumash. Shamayim, V'Oretz, V'Or, V'Choshech, the heavens, the earth, the light, the darkness. V'Soihu, V'Voihu. Soihu means emptiness, nothingness. Boihu means emptiness. Ruach, a wind. Umayim, and water. Shenemar v'ruach elikim merachafes al pnei hamayim. The Radal has a little different pshat than what I'm going to say, but I think that the word is that if you take the first 2 psukim, so you get all 8 of these things. So you have Bereishis bara elikim, eis hashomayim, ve'eis ha'aretz, ve'aretz ha'eis soihu v'avoihu, soihu v'avoihu, v'choshech al pnei soim, v'ruach elikim merachafes al pnei hamayim. And then the next pasuk is v'yom elikim yihi ar, v'yihi ar, whatever, the first 3 psukim, and then in the first few psukim, and then you have the Choshech. So that's where all these things come. When the Medrash brings just this pasuk, I think it just means all those psukim in the beginning of Bereishis. The Radal says a different pshat that it's coming to teach you that all these things are creation, and the chiddush is dafka by ruach and mayim, because it doesn't say lashon of creating by ruach and mayim. But okay, I don't know if you have to say that. Another 2 things were created on the first day. Yom and Laila, day and night. It says that Hashem created the light and dark on the first day, and then Hashem called the Or Yom, and Hashem called the Choshech Laila, and Vayikra Yom Echad. So this second opinion wants to say that Yom and Laila was also created on the first day. The first opinion would tell you, no, Yom and Laila is the same thing as day and night. Hashem created day and night. Just He called the time that has light day, and He called the time that has night that has darkness night. But He didn't create day and night. That's just what the time is called. It's not a special creation of. And this opinion, it seems, is saying that no, there's a separate creation called He created day and He created night.
Zman. He created Zman.
He created the concept of time, which is in a way it's a shtickle chiddush to say that you create a concept. You can.
We say He created time. Hashem created time.
Creation usually is you create something. You don't create an idea. There's an extra one if you don't have one. You have the same editions. You could show them what pages. Just if you look at what it says in the Medrash, like Shidchiyastik, so it says that Hashem created Or and Choshech. Of these 8 or 10 things that Hashem created on the first day is light and darkness. So it says He created darkness, right, which we're just discussing right now. That it doesn't. It sounds very funny to say that you create a concept. Now it's an interesting machlokes, even in philosophers, but even in Rishonim and Achrayim, how to understand what is Choshech. Is Choshech just the absence of light? It's just. If you don't have light, so mimela you have choshech. There's no light, so there's darkness.
We think that it is because we know what day is and what night is.
What do you mean?
Like in the night you don't have the sun, you don't have light.
Right.
I mean that's the concept of choshech and.
Right. So it sounds like if you don't have light, then it's on its own it becomes dark.
That's the way you see it.
Right.
Every day we see that thing happening.
Or do you say that darkness on its own is a creation? It's something that it's an existence on its own. So it's a big machlokes. The Rav Sadia Gaon in Emunas V'Deis writes like the opinion that choshech is just the lack of light. The Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim and the Rambam in Pirush Mishnayos in the beginning of Pesachim also seems to say that darkness is just a lack of light. It's not its own creation. Also, the Balatanya famously writes that Ma'at or is doicha harbe cheshech. A little bit of light is pushes away a lot of darkness. It says why? Because darkness is nothing. So when you take a little spark of something, that pushes away the nothing, because the darkness doesn't really exist. It's just because there's no light. That's one mahalach in the Mefarshim. The other mahalach, a lot of Rishonim say, a lot of other Mefarshim say that no, darkness is a creation on its own. We say it's a pasuk in Yeshaya, I believe. We say in davening by Shachris every morning. We say Yotzer or uvarei cheshech. Hashem created cheshech. He formed light and He created cheshech. So you see that cheshech is a creation. The Chizkuni says this.
What's the difference between Yotzer and Bor?
Oh, we're going to say that in a moment. But the Chizkuni brings this pasuk as a raya that cheshech is a creation on its own. It's its own existence. It's not just a lack of light. And the Vilna Gaon says this, the Radak says this, the Yaibit says this, Maratz Chias, a whole bunch of other Achronim. I think the Netziv and the Sefer HaKsav HaKabbalah, they bring this pasuk Yetzer Hara Cheshech to tell you that Cheshech is a creation on its own. It's not just a lack of light. There's a sort of a middle opinion. The Ramban has like a little bit more nuanced position on this matter. The Ramban says that when we talk about Cheshech in terms of Brias HaOlam, so cheshech there means some sort of fire. I don't know what that means, but that's what the Ramban says. And when we talk about darkness as we know it, so that for sure he says darkness is just a lack of light, and like Rav Sadin and the other Rishonim. And then it says, but the cheshech that we find by Makas cheshech in Mitzrayim, when Hashem gave darkness to the Mitzrayim, so that was a special type of cheshech that Hashem created dafka a darkness that was its own creation, and that darkness had the koyach to push away light. Like usually light pushes away darkness, here the darkness pushed away the light. That's the Ramban's position. It was like a tangible darkness. Right. Chazal said that it was like thick, that they couldn't, for 3 days, like they couldn't even move.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because the sun wasn't created yet. That's light. That creates light. And here we're talking about ore, but there's no source of the ore. Whereas our light, there's always a source. So perhaps there's a hiluk between or and or.
That's probably true, because we're not talking. I hear.
Does Reb
Does what?
Does Reb Eliezer, does he speak about the time that predated this in terms of the nothingness that was hovering over the surface of the earth? Because without having some idea of what that nothingness was, it's a little hard to understand this.
It's true. What you're saying might be true. The only problem is that we don't know what happened before. We only know what the Torah tells us.
The Torah says that
and we know that we can't. I think it's a
portable letter. Why the Torah begins with the letter
Beis. Yeah.
Because it's like you have a gog or whatever. You have a wall. You have walls all around.
Yeah.
You have one what's it called, an exit. That means that everything like before it's blocked for you to understand. The only thing you can understand it from now on.
It's I think a mission Chagiga. It says we don't ask what's up, what's higher than we understand, what's lower than we understand, what's before what we understand, what's after what we understand.
So understanding starts at this point.
Right. We can only deal with what we have. We have it from the Torah. What the Torah is trying to reveal to us in a few words, so that we could try to build on. But what we don't have, that's already, that's already beyond us.
We don't have Masorah.
Right. There's nothing to talk about. So the question is just an interesting question, that if you understand that choshech is just a lack of light, so how could we say that you created choshech? How does it say biria? So like Rabbi Epstein said, that it could be that there's a distinction between the lashon of yotzer and bayre, and in fact Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shor in his Pirush on Parshas Bereishis says exactly that. He says yotzer sounds like forming. So forming is like a physical thing that exists. You form something. You can only form something that exists. But bria is more like a general, like it created. You can even create concepts or things that don't actually exist, or ideas. And I think that's really the approach that a lot of Rishonim sort of take to this idea. The Ramban writes that if the person who, let's say, you can say it like this, like if you turn the lights off in the room, right? So you say, who made the room dark? So what do you mean? Nobody made the room dark. Just we turned off the light, so Mimela it's dark. The Ramban says no. The person who removed the light, you can call it that he created the darkness. He caused the darkness. That's what the Ramban says. The Kolbo just says like still that's the lashon of the psukim. It could be that this is what he means, that we call it creation even though it's not necessarily a physical. Yeah, what?
Do any of the Meforshim speak about when something is created, its opposite is created at the same time?
No, but you definitely do see that over here. Shemayim and Eretz, Or and Choshech, Yom Laila. I don't know how Tohu and Vo, how they're opposites, but I'm not sure what Tohu and Vo are in the first place. So it could be that they're opposites. Ruach and Mayim. Also, you have to know exactly.
It's just that human beings, our ability to perceive life,
yeah,
quote unquote life, is based upon opposites, dialectics.
Right.
Okay?
So you bring out a point by saying like the opposite idea and comparing them.
Just having them in existence,
right,
next to each other, experiencing them, gives us the ability to perceive within it life. That's the way human beings are. That's what the Eibishter put in our minds in terms of the ability to perceive.
Yeah.
So.
Just one last point on this. The Rekeach, interestingly, in his Pirush on Chumash and Parshas Bereishis, and once in his Pirush on the Siddur by Yetzer Avoy Cheshech, he says a different idea. He says that when we talk about creating darkness, he says it's talking about creating the clouds. That's what he says. Since the clouds, like I was sitting in the park earlier today and watching like the clouds like blocking the sun, and then the wind moved it, and then it wasn't blocking the sun. So the clouds bring about darkness because they block the sun. That's the implication of what the Rekeach is saying. But it's very difficult to say because, first of all, we're not talking like Rabbi Pomeranz said. We're not talking about a sun. We're talking about some other type of or.
Or is for the tzaddikim.
Right, the or that's gunus for tzaddikim.
Whereas the sun or that's just the sun.
Right.
Here it's not actually or.
Right.
There's no.
And also. According to the Rekeach, we're talking about the Choshech which is created on the first day, which the Torah says about it. Hashem called that Choshech Laila. Now, according to the Rekeach, it's not necessarily Laila. You could have in the middle of the day, the sun is out, but the clouds come and block the sun, so that makes Choshech, and that's called Choshech. But the Torah says what we're talking about is Laila. It's the middle of this. It could be in the middle of the day. Even so, I'm not sure exactly what the Rekeach means. It's a interesting thing that has to be analyzed. Okay, let's go a little bit later. Ushmoin b'yom hasheni. So the Medrash continues and says that there were 8 things that were created on the second day. Now this passage is slightly problematic. Before getting into what these 8 things are, just these 8 things are actually mentioned elsewhere also in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer and Perek Yud Tes. We'll get to there. And there it says that these things were created Bein Hashmashos. And in fact, what? Oh, we'll see in a minute. But also it's a Mishnah in Mesachos Avos. It says Asar Dvarim Nivru be'erev Shabbos Bein Hashmashos, and it lists a lot of these same 8 things that we're talking about over here. So the Radal changes the explanation of the Medrash. He says that it's not supposed to say Ushmoina Bayam Hasheni, it's supposed to say Ushmoina Bein Hashmashos. And he says that originally there was some sort of Rosh Tevis that it said Beis Yud Hey Shin, and whoever was printing it thought that, we're talking about the first day, so now we're going to talk about the second day. So Beis Yud Hey Shin means Bayam Hasheni, but really Beis Yud Hey Shin is an abbreviation for Bein Hashmashos. And if you say like that, then this works very well with what it says in Perek Yud Tes, and it works well with the Mishnah in Avos. And all the questions are good. But if you say that it really means Bayam Hasheni, so then it just doesn't make any sense. Bayam Hasheni is really, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer is going to start talking about Bayam Hasheni in the next parak, on the Parak Daled. But over here we're still talking about Pashas. We're still talking about the first day. But so these are the 8 things that were created Bein Hashmashos. Habe'er, the well, that was the well that the Jews had in the Midbar that gave them water. Haman, the man that fell from Shemayim. Hamata, Pashas, that means the stick of Moshe Rabbeinu. Va'keshes, the rainbow. Va'ksav va'michtov. So Ksav and Michtov, there's a few different Meforshim. What does Ksav and Michtov mean? Rashi in Mesachos Pesachim, Daf Nun Daled and Aleph, brings 2 pshatim. Rashi first says Ksav means how to read what's written in Lashon HaKodesh, and Pashtus Lashon HaKodesh, and Michtav means how to write it. Nun Dalet and Aleph. That's one pshat that Rashi says. The other pshat that Rashi says is that, no, Ksav means how to write the letters of Lashon HaKodesh, let's say, and Michtav means that which is used to write on the luchos. And some of the Mefarshim, the Ravan and Mesachas Avos and Rabbeinu Yaakov Bar Shimshon and Mesachas Avos, they say that the word shouldn't be read as Michtav, it should be read as Machtev, the thing that writes, the writer. Hashem apparently used some sort of, Rashi calls it an eight v'cheret, like some sort of pen or a inscribing tool that was used to inscribe the luchos. So that's what it means, the machtev or michtav. Other Mefarshim say that Ksav and Michtav is talking about maybe the way the Torah is written in Shemayim and the way that it's going to be written for us. That's a mahalach that Rabbeinu Yoina and the Rambam, other Mefarshim and Mesachas Avos speak about. But that's Ksav v'Michtav. V'Hakutaynes, and the tunic or the coat. So the Bayis HaGadol that you guys have says maybe that's talking about the coat of Adam Rishon. The Marzu says it's talking about the coat of Adam Rishon. No, we're going to talk about the coat of Adam Rishon in Perek Yudalad and Perek Eliezer. But apparently Adam Rishon had a special garment that he wore. It says in the pasuk Vayas Lahem Kasnus Or. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a Kasnus Or, a coat of Or. Now Or can mean Or light with an aleph, or mean Or with an ayin, which means skin. So there's different Mefarshim. I think Perek Eliezer seems to say, says that later on that it was out of a fingernail. You heard such a thing?
It was like translucent.
Yeah, something like that.
Like a nail.
So that's what they had before the Chet.
Oh, that was before the Chet?
Before the
Yeah,
Chet.
before the
Ah, so this was what?
He needed to
After
break
the
it
Chet,
Aleph is
they
before?
call
Ayin after.
That's what it was?
it. Before the Chet, they had the skin of nails. Afterwards, Hashem took it off, and then they needed real clothing because they thought it didn't have.
Aha. So then what was the real clothing made out of?
They didn't really need clothing. It was translucent.
No, I'm saying afterwards. Afterwards, what was it made out of? Not sure. Okay.
Some say fig tree, I think.
The Gemara says that they cover themselves with fig tree, but I don't know if the clothing was made. Could be it was just covering the makom. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. But interestingly, I saw on Shabbos.
But they ended up needing clothes. I mean,
Yeah.
in this parsha we had Esav's
Oh,
bringeth, which was supposedly from Adam Harishon and had mystical powers to attract the animals.
Right.
Had animals all on it. This was mamish clothing.
right. So
Coat.
I saw something an interesting pshat in this week's parasha. It says we always talk about Adam Rishon's clothing. Whatever happened to Chava's clothing? I'm not such an egalitarian Jew over here, but what happened to Chava's clothing? I've never heard anyone discussing this. But I saw a sefer on Shabbos. There's a sefer called Chemdes Yomim that I'm learning a shtickle. It's from Rav Shalom Shabazi, one of the Gedolei Teiman. He was born in 1619. He died in 1720, so he was 101 years old. But he has a sefer on Chumash called Chemdes Yomim. In this week's parsha told us, it says Ace Big Day Esav Hachamudos. It says S usually comes to add another thing, S l'rabos, and Big Day sounds like clothes, like it doesn't say Beged Esav, it says Big Day, the clothes of it. Chamudos also Lashon Rabim. I said he was wearing cute clothes because Chamud in modern Hebrew means cute, but his like special clothes. So it sounds like it was special clothes in plural. But if we're just talking about like the coat of Adam Rishon, so it should be one cloth, not clothes. So he says that Esav used to wear the clothes of Adam Rishon and the clothes of Chava. So he was a cross-dresser also. Esav was a cross-dresser and he wore the clothes of Adam and Chava. That's what it means. It's Big Day Esav Hachamudos. It's not an idea. V'hamazikin, going right there in the Medrash, it says V'hamazikin, the damaging angels. Or damaging creations. Someone asked, you asked, right? When we said that these things were created ben hashmashos, so was it when ben hashmashos? What day ben hashmashos? So our girsa of the way we have the Mishnah in Mesachas Avos in Perek Hey, it says Asara Dvarim Nivru be'erev Shabbos ben hashmashos. Sounds like all these things were created Erev Shabbos, Friday afternoon, Friday evening before Shabbos of B'rias Ha'olam. That's when Hashem created these 8 things, or in the Mishnah it's 10 things. What?
Adam Rishon was created Erev Shabbos.
Adam Rishon himself was created Erev Shabbos. That's true.
But this is
in the morning.
Yom Echad, Yom Echad, Yom Echad, Yom Echad. So it all started on Yom Rishon.
Well, what are you saying?
Right?
What?
Yom Rishon was Yom Rishon. If Adam was created on Yom Shishi,
Yeah.
then Yom Rishon
Was a Sunday.
Was a Sunday.
Yeah.
But you're saying that they were all created on Erev Shabbos? I don't understand.
Erev Shabbos meaning the same day that Adam Rishon was created, that evening.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
going
after Adam Rishon.
Even though it's talking about Yom Rishon here, it doesn't.
So this is the point that I want to speak about. That our Mishnah says in Avos Asardam Nivru Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashos, and a lot of Rishonim, some Rishonim don't have the words Erev Shabbos; they just have Ben Hashmashos, and they explain that it means Erev Shabbos. And some Rishonim have it the way we have it. That says in the Mishnah Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashos. I found one Rishon that says not like either of these two ways. There's a sefer called Sefer Musar from a Talmud of the Rambam. I forgot his name. It's either of Yosef ben Yehuda or of Yehuda ben Yosef. I forgot what his name was. But he's a Rishon, and he on this Mishnah in Avos, he has a Sefer Musar on Mesachos Avos. He says that Asar Dvarim Nivru Ben Shmoshes, and he goes through them, and he goes through each one and says how which day of the week each one was created, how it's kashur to it's let's say tangentially kashur to the creations of that day. Let's say I don't remember specifically what he says, but let's say in the Mishnah it says Piha Asain, the mouth of Bilam's donkey, right? So the donkeys were created on the 6th day. So this was created like Ben Shmashos of the 6th day, and each of them he explains how each of them has a kesher to a certain day of creation. And he says that it was created on the Ben Shmashos of that day.
That's what makes sense.
That's what makes sense, especially in light of the way Pirkei D'Eliezer brings it down. We're talking about the first day, and all of a sudden we're talking about Ben Shmashos. If we're talking about Ben Shmashos of Erev Shabbos, so it would be a few prakim after this. Perek Yotes is what we're talking about Erev Shabbos. It happens to be that in Perek Yotes he does mention these things again. Erev Shabbos Ben Shmashos Malasot. But from here it sounds mamish like what this Sefer Musar is saying. And it's just an interesting point. Fine, let's go later. Asara Dvarim Olu B'Machshava. 10 things came on in Hashem's thoughts when he was first creating the world. When Hashem was first creating the world, he thought about these 10 things, but they weren't created until later on. Yerushalayim, V'ruches Avos, the spirits of the Avos, V'orches Tzadikim, and the path of the Tzadikim, V'Gehenim, and Gehenim. Now the Radal says that Gehenim over here can't mean Gehenim as we understand it, because we said last week that Gehenim was one of the 7 things that were created before Hashem created the world. So how could we say that Gehenim Hashem thought about before creating the world? So he wants to be machalik between 2 types of Gehenim. He says maybe last week we were talking about the space of Gehenim, wherever the location of Gehenim, and here we're talking about the fire of Gehenim, which we're going to see. We're not going to see it, but at least we're not going to see it now. But the fire of Gehenim was created, I think, on the 2nd day of creation. So here we're talking about before Hashem started creating everything else. So Hashem thought about creating the fire of Gehenim, but he's not going to do it until the 2nd day of creation. He alternatively wants to say that what it means here, Gehenim, that it's supposed to be that's a mistake, and it should say Rishoim, and then you would read it V'orchos Tzadikim V'Rishoim, the pathways of Tzadikim and Rishoim. Okay, that's one mahalach of in the Radal. Umei HaMabul, the waters of the deluge, V'luchas Hashnim, sorry, and the 2nd tablets. Right? We said last week that the luchos. We said that last week? No, we didn't say last week.
I'm wondering where the first one.
The Mishnah in Avos says that the luchos were created Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashos. So what about the 2nd luchos? So the Radal explains that the 2nd luchos obviously were created by Moshe Rabbeinu, because Hashem said, "Psal luchos shnei luchos avonim karishenim." But Hashem thought about the 2nd luchos already beforehand. The Shabbos Hashem thought beforehand. Like Rav Shlomo Alkabetz immortalized this idea in L'cha Daidi. We say Seif Ma'aseh b'machshava tchila, talking about Shabbos. Seif Ma'aseh, the last of the creations. The 7th day, b'machshava tchila, Hashem was thinking about it from beforehand. Mikdash, and the Beis Hamikdash. And we said before that Beis Hamikdash was one of the 7 things that Hashem created before He created the world. So here again, the Radal says that you have to be machalik between the place of the Mikdash and the building of the Mikdash. Before we were talking about the place of the Mikdash, that was created before the world was created. But the actual building of the Mikdash that Bnei Yisrael built later on. Okay, the Aron and the Aron that housed the luchas in the Beis Hamikdash, v'or l'olam haba, and the light for olam haba. And also the Bais HaGodol, the Pirush that you guys have on the bottom, he points out that Gehenim and Beis Hamikdash we already said before, but the way the Radal says that we already answered those questions. That we're talking about 2 nukudas of Gehenim and 2 nukudas of the Beis Hamikdash.
How come Hashem was thinking about the or the Olam Haba without thinking about the Olam Haba? You can.
What does it mean, the or of Olam Haba? I don't know what that
means. Right. It's like you open the fridge and there's or inside of that. But you you need a space, you need the concept before, so you think, like or Olam. It was before. It doesn't matter, Tov Vavo, whatever. But there was light afterwards. So why he thought about the Olam Haba before thinking about the Olam Haba itself?
Let's think. I don't know.
Was it created before? Was it created before creating this Olam? The Olam Haba was created before?
The Olam Haba.
Maybe in the beginning.
I mean, we're saying, but like Rabbi Pomerantz mentioned before, that when we're talking about Or right now, on the first day of creation, that was the Or that was Ganus for Tzadikim L'Olam Haba. That's the Or Ganus. So it's funny because we just said that Or was created on the first day, and now we're saying that it was all b'machshavtei. Maybe it was all about machshavta to use it for later on. Maybe that's what it means.
It was created already, and his machshava was, what should I include it in, quote unquote, creation?
Right. I guess that's the shot.
Obviously, here though, it's or of Leolam Haba, which is not or in the sense of light. It's a different type of thing. It is not. It's not this kind. It's not real.
You can't describe it. We don't know what it is. It's something else. The word light is just a mashal for whatever it is.
Yeah.
I guess that's the. Now we're gonna learn some really weird stuff over here.
Oh,
yeah,
weird.
I'm telling you. You'll see. We could try to understand different nukudas of this, but to really understand what it's saying, I don't know, and I don't even pretend to know. But okay, let's try it out. Shomayim me'eza makim nivru. Where were the heavens created from? That's the question of Pirkei Elazar, and he answers, Me'or levusha shel Kadosh Baruch Hu shehu lavush. It's created from the light of the clothing that a Kadosh Baruch Hu wears. Lokach mimenu, Hashem took from that light, or took from that clothing, uparas kasimla, and he spread it out, like, let's say like a talus, and it was going and spreading and going out more. What? You look like you have something to say. What? And it was going and spreading out more and more until Hashem said stop. Maybe this is the Big Bang or something where we understand that at least the scientists understand that like the universe is like constantly expanding and expanding, like spreading out. So maybe this is some sort of remnants to that idea. That's why Hashem is called Shakai. Hashem said to the Shamayim, stop spreading, and it stopped. It stopped. The Radal points out that over here, the Medrash is darshaning that Shakai, Shin, Dalid, and then Yud, is like Shin means Shamayim, and then Dai. But he says elsewhere, it says that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is Omar La'olam Dai. He said to the whole world, not just Shamayim, but Shamayim and Eretz, Omar La'olam Dai. And if you learn like that, so then the name Shakai should be darshan the Shin meaning Sha'omar, La'olam Dai. So what does the Shin just represent Shamayim, or just does it represent Sha'omar? That's what the Radal points out. Fine. So the Medrash is saying that the Shamayim was created from the light of the clothing of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, whatever that means. How do we know that the Shemayim is created from the light of his clothing? It says in the pasuk, we say this pasuk every morning when we put on our talis. Okay, now ha'aretz me'ezah makom nivris. Where was the land created from? We know where the Shemayim. Now we want to know where the land is created. So it says the Medrash, mishaleg shetaras kisei hakavod, from the snow which is under the kisei hakavod. What happened? Lokach v'zorak al hamayim. Hashem took from that snow and he threw it onto the water. V'nikpa'u hamayim, and the water became hardened. V'natsa afar aretz, and from that the dirt of the land was created. Shenemar ki l'shaleg yemer havei aretz, because Hashem said to the snow, "You should be land. You should become land." That's what it says in the Medrash. Okay, what's happening over here? So I would like to share with you guys the Rambam's reaction to this Medrash. And the Rambam in the Guide to the Perplexed, so in Mar Nevuchim, so the Rambam himself is perplexed when it comes to this piece of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, as I'll explain in a moment. Just a little bit of background. The Rambam in Mar Nevuchim discusses at least three different philosophies about the creation of the world. Aristotle's philosophy, Plato's philosophy, and the Rambam's philosophy. Aristotle holds that the world is olam kadmon. The world always existed, always will exist, and nothing changes, and it runs by itself. That's Aristotle. Plato holds that the world didn't always exist, but was rather created from something known in Greek philosophy as hiuli, some sort of, or in other Mepharshim called the chomer harishon, the first matter. And from that the world was created, but that first matter always existed. But the world didn't always exist, just that first matter always existed. Rambam understands that the world was created directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. So the Rambam brings this piece of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and he asks a question on it. And he says, what are you asking me? Where was the Shemayim created from? Where was the Eretz created from? What kind of question is that? Hashem created it. No, where was it created from? That's one question. And so it sounds like Hashem, Kabiyachol, or Pashtus, the Rambam is saying, that it sounds like from this Medrash that Hashem can't create it from nothing. Hashem must have created it from something else. And if you're saying Hashem must have created it from something else, so the Medrash has to give an answer. But where do you get that from, that Hashem can't create it from nothing? That's one question. The other question is, you didn't really answer the question. You said, it's created from the light of his clothing, or the Eretz is created from the snow shetachas kisei hakavod. So then you ask weiter. So where was his clothing created from? Where is the snow from the kisei hakavod created from? How come we didn't really answer the question? If nothing could be created from, if there's no such thing as creating something from nothing, so we said that the world was created, Shemayim was created from oil of Vushay, right? But nothing can be created. You can't create something from nothing, right? So the world was created from oil of Vushay. So where was oil of Vushay created from? Because you can't create something from nothing. Or where was the snow created from? You didn't really answer the question. You go weiter and weiter. So the Rambam says it sounds like Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer holds like Plato's philosophy, that the world is not eternal. The world was created from some sort of first matter, and that first matter is eternal. So it sounds like the world. Where was the world created from? Vushay, or Shelech Shetachas Kisei Hakavod. That's the first matter. Where was that created from? That we don't ask from, because that's eternal. That's how the Rambam understood Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and he writes some very, very sharp things against this piece of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. I'm just going to read it to you.
It's not such a big difference, other than saying, rather than that primordial stuff, that first matter, just replacing that concept with God existed, and God had the ability to create that first matter. That's all.
Okay, so
you need a first.
So
okay?
I'm gonna
a first that's beyond our comprehension.
I'm gonna propose a similar idea to how to understand the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. I just want to read you guys the Rambam, because it's very you might enjoy the way he says it. This is Mar Nevuchim, Chelek Sheni, Perek Chav Vav. I'm reading from the Kapach translation of the Rambam. It says, Re'isi Rabbi Eliezer Agadol Devarim Bepirkim Hamufursamim Hayeduim B'Shem Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. I saw Rabbi Eliezer Agadol writes in his famous Prakim in the sefer known as Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer, the Pirkei Rebbe, not Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer. Lo re'isi klal yosef tamui mehem. I never saw anything more tamua, more astonishing or wondrous. B'divrei af echad me'ahalchim b'teres Moshe Rabbeinu. I never saw any from person write something as weird as this. Vuhu, and it is Shuhud Amar Dvarim Shema L'Shana. He writes the following things. Listen to what he writes, and then he quotes Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer, and he writes, "Umi yitin v'yotati mas savar chacham says." Someone could, Halavayis will be able to explain to me what this chacham Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer holds, and he explains the questions as I said them, and then he writes in the end. Kloli shel davar, to make a sikum of what I'm saying. Hem dvarim hamishabshim daitel shamalumen hadati ma'id ma'id. These things that are written in Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer over here can mess up the understanding of a religious person, very, very much so. V'lein is barely by bir masrik. I don't know any way of explaining it enough. I'm only bringing it down so that you don't make any mistakes about it. He's saying, throw this piece of this shtickle Torah out of Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer. I'm just mentioning it because I don't want you to make a mistake and see this and try to become an apicurus or something. And then the Rambam says that there's one nukuda that he does like, and the nukuda is that the Shemayim and the Eretz are coming from two different places or whatever. But that's in general. This is what the Rambam says about this piece of Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer. So how are we supposed to understand it? So I saw there's a sefer called Meisei Hashem. It's written by Rebbe Eliezer Ashkenazi. Rebbe Eliezer Ashkenazi was a very interesting personality. He lived in the time of the Beis Yosef and the Ramah. He was a grandson of the Marik. He has tshuvas. The Beis Yosef and the Ramah, both of them wrote tshuvas to and from him. And he traveled around the world. He lived originally in Italy. He lived in Turkey, Poland, whatever. He wrote a bunch of svarim, but we only have two svarim that still exist from him. The first one's called Yosef Lekach on Megillas Esther. If you've heard of it, it might be because Rav Shlomo Brevda Zatzal made that sefer famous. He went around the world speaking about Yosef Lekach on Megillas Esther, and he also reprinted it again. And he wrote this other sefer called Meisei Hashem, which is basically on stories of Chumash and also on the Haggadah Shel Pesach. So he brings down the Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer, and he has some mahalach to explain it. And also I have also my own a little bit, maybe it's a similar idea, but the way he explains it is like this. There's two types of creations. There's creation of yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, and then there's a creation of yesh me'yesh, something from something. And he says that the Torah wants to teach us that Hashem has the ability to create both yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, and something from something. What does that mean? So he says that originally Hashem created, let's say, the Or Levushay and this Sheleg Shetachas Kisei HaKavod, something from nothing, to teach us this lesson that Hashem can create something from nothing. But then Hashem wanted to teach us another lesson that He can create yesh me'yesh. So instead of creating the world yesh me'ayin, there's no point in doing that. He says why? Because if I tell you that I can create something from nothing, does it matter if I can create one something from nothing or I can create 1,000 somethings from nothing? Once I tell you that I can create something from nothing, so it doesn't matter how many somethings I can create from nothing. It's the same power. So all Hashem had to do to show that He can create yesh me'ayin is to create one small thing from nothing. So Hashem did. He created the forerunner of the Shemayim, which we call the Levushay, whatever that means, and the forerunner of the Eretz, which is the Shelik Shetachas Kisei HaKavod, and that was his yesh me'ayin. That we learned the lesson from that. Then Hashem created the rest of the world came yesh me'yesh. Everything else in the Shemayim was created from that Or Levushay, and everything from the Eretz was created from that Shelik Shetachas Kisei HaKavod, to teach us that Hashem also creates yesh me'yesh. No, you would think to yourself, well, what do you mean? If Hashem could create something from nothing, then for sure He can create something from something, right? It's a kal v'chomer. So He says, no, it's not necessarily true, because He gives the mashal. If you make out of pottery, if you make a round pot out of clay, yeah, can you take this round pot out of clay and now turn it into a square pot? No. The only way you can do it is if you smash it and you bring it down back to its original elements, and then redo it and make it now into a square pot. But as a round pot, you can't just take a round pot and turn it into a square pot. It doesn't work like that. You have to go break it down and then make it into a square. So this is, you would think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, once He creates the world, it's done and He can't change it around, and that's the way it is. He can only do Yesh Me'ayin and nothing else. So we're coming to teach you a Chiddush that Hashem can also do Yesh Me'yesh. He doesn't say this part that I'm about to say, but I think that this is what he means. That Hashem also intervenes in the created world. It already exists, and Hashem still changes things around. That's the way the Sefer Ma'aseh Hashem.
I suppose the philosophers that think that once the world was created, so even though there's a Hashem, it's written in what's it called on the Kuzari.
Yeah.
So even though the world was created and Hashem created it, okay, I can take it, but he's not in,
Now he's retired. He's got
interference. Like
he's out of the
not
picture.
there and it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Like everything that happens here, the trees and the birds and the people and the babies and whatever, we do it.
Right.
So maybe that's against that.
Right. It's exactly against that idea that Hashem does intervene in the world. He does Yesh Me'ayin, and He also does Yesh Me'yesh. So that's one. So according to this Mahalach, really, so the answer to the Rambam's question is no. Of course, Hashem could create everything from something else, but Hashem wants to teach us two chidushim. So that's why He did it in this, so to speak, funny way in order to teach us both lessons. They can create Yesh Me'yesh and Yesh Me'ayin. That's one nekuda. I wanted to say maybe a slightly different approach, and I wouldn't say this stam because. These type when you're talking about these type of things, you have to make sure that you're not saying apikoros or whatever. But I spoke to a few different Talmidei Chachamim, and they didn't argue what I said. They said, I hear it. It makes sense. So I'll say it over to you guys and see what you guys think. We have a concept that there's two types of miracles. Hashem makes a miracle, nes golui and a nes nister. An open miracle, which is obvious to everyone that sees it, and then there's a nes that's not so obvious. It's a miracle that's less apparent. It's more subtle. So we understand that especially nowadays, but even before, Hashem, even when He's making a nes, Hashem prefers to make a less obvious nes, a nes nister as opposed to a nes nigla. That's just the derech of Hashem. Maybe I think somewhere it says from this you see the anivus of Hashem, and kol shekin that we should learn that to be an anav, like Hashem is an anav. Hashem makes a nes that it's not so obvious that He had a hand in it. It looks like it's derech hateva, but Hashem really had a hand in it. So, but instead of making a nes that it's obvious that it's a nes. So kol shekin we should do things ba'anivus instead of showing off and doing everything as if it's coming from us. But the point is that Hashem prefers to do a nes nister than to do a nes nigla. So if you're talking about two types of creation, there's a type of creation that's yesh me'ayin and yesh me'yesh. So it would seem that yesh me'ayin is a bigger chiddush. It's making something out of nothing. It's mamash a nes nigla. So where did that come from? Nowhere, right? If you have something from something, so you could say, it morphed into, it evolved into whatever terminology you want to use, but it's not so apparent that there's a Hashem behind it. So maybe you could say that Hashem didn't want to create the whole world. There's no such. You couldn't create the whole world nister because the world didn't exist before it was created. So Hashem wanted to make it less nigla than it would have been. So Hashem created just the first elements as a yesh me'ayin, something out of nothing, to make an open miracle. And then after that, He created from those things. He created as if it looks like it's derech hateva. This nes nister. This morphed into all the things that have to do with Shemayim. This morphed into all the things that have to do with Eretz. It could be that's the pshat in the Pirkei D'Eliezer. Not sure. Al Kapanim, so the Medrash is saying that the world was created from the Shemayim was created from Or Levushay Shel Kadosh Baruch. Also, Stam, I just remember that the Radal brings down from the Pirush and Shir Shirim that's Milchus Ramban, but it's printed in Kisvei Ramban and Masar of Cook, but it's really written by Rabbeinu Ezra, another Rishon who was a Mukubal. He brings down the Pirkei D'Eliezer, and he says Taka that Pirkei D'Eliezer holds like Plato, like the Rambam was saying, but the Rambam was saying does he hold like Plato? And he was saying he holds like Plato. Okay. So just to recap, the Medrash is saying that the Shamayim was created from Or Levusha Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Eretz was created from the Shalig Shetachas Kisei HaKavod. The Radal brings that there's another girsa that it was the Ofar Shetachas Kisei HaKavod, but in our Medrash it says that the Shalig became like Ofar. Maybe I'll speak about that in a moment. But what's this musig of Shalig? Just obviously all these things. By the way, the Radal has a whole different way of answering the Rambam's question on the Pirkei Avos. I don't exactly understand what the Radal is saying, but it's like I'll pick Kabbalah, but I'm not, without getting into the Kabbalah, everything I'm saying is trying to like not get into the Kabbalah, like the Pashup Shat. But what's this musig of the snow that's Tachas Kisei HaKavod? Like what's snow? What shach is the snow? So I saw two interesting mahalchim to be mazbeh what's this Indian of snow. So the Radal brings from the Sefer Sodi Razi, which I believe is miyuchas to the Rekeach, that the snow, you have to have lived in New York in order to understand this. You probably understand this really good. Snow, when it first snows, the first day it snows, it comes down, it's all white, and it's like quiet and nice and beautiful. Yeah? And then it starts like melting, and then a day or two later, it starts getting like black and icky and disgusting and whatever. Yeah. So the Radal says from the Sayyidi Razi that's the pshat in the world. Hashem created it like snow, like it had so much potential to be like nice and beautiful and all good, and then like people messed it up and it became like dark and black and these things. That's one mahalach.
But why is it under his chair? Under hakisei hakavod.
I don't know.
Meaning the question is me'ezeh makom nivra.
From what's the place? And the answer is the snow from that place.
It's the wrong answer. Also, it actually is not from the place. It was created from the Shelag itself.
Oh, yeah.
So what?
I don't know. The Radal brings a pasuk of we say the Haftarah for Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Hashomayim kisi v'haaretz hadaim ragloi. Shamayim is my chair. Hashem says the Shamayim is my chair, and the Aretz, the land, is hadaim ragloi. Like I know. I think the word is the ottoman. Where you put your feet up on the like on a recliner chair. So the aretz is my ottoman. I don't know what's the word for it in English. It's ottoman. Yeah, you like a footstool. Yeah, the aretz is my footstool. So maybe that's what he says. So that has to do with this. What's a footstool? Like you have like you're sitting down on here and you have like a zach with like feet and whatever, and you sit down and like you put your foot up on it.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Something I don't know. That's what.
They're very expensive. They can be very expensive too.
Yeah.
Go to the small cheap ones.
So I don't know, but that's what the Radal says. What the Indian of Shalig. I saw another pshat in the Indian of Shalig. This is very interesting how I found this pshat. But there's a earlier Rishon called Rabbi Yaakov Anatoli. And Rav Yaakov Anatoli wrote a sefer called Malmad HaTalmidim, which is one of the first Sifrei Drush that was written in the time of the Rishonim. And a lot of all other Rishonim Kemat plagiarized him, and they took a lot of ideas from this sefer called Malmad HaTalmidim. Not plagiarized. Back then the minhag wasn't to quote people by name. Like the Rashba and even other Rishonim, they bring ideas from this sefer Malmad HaTalmidim. But the Malmad HaTalmidim, Rav Yaakov Anatoli, he was supported by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II. And in his Sefer Muhammad HaTalmidim in Parshas Boy, he brings a pshat in the name of Frederick II, Emperor Frederick II. And he says, what's the pshat that the world was created from the Sheleg Shetachas Kisei HaKavod? He says that the word is that Sheleg, what's the yesod of Sheleg is that it's white. He doesn't explain it, but I think the pshat is that if you look in the Mesachas Negoim, in the beginning of Negoim, there's different shades of white in regard to tzaras, and the whitest shade of white is called Sheleg. By Shem it says v'hinei mitzaras kasholeg. She was white like snow. Snow white is like Snow White, Snow White. Alright, but the Indian of white is that white is all the colors put together. When you're talking about black, so black absorbs all the colors, and white bounces all the colors back into your eye. So that's what white is.
If you think about what a snowflake is, if you take a close look at it, you'll see that they're all crystalline structures, okay? They have the ability to morph light, whatever. So
right.
if they have this ability, to take in light and to morph it. All light, they make color.
Right.
They make white. The summation
Yeah.
of all colors.
It looks like it's white, but if you really look at it, it's really all colors put together.
Because it's a crystal.
Oh. So that's the part why the Aretz was created from this sheleg, because the sheleg is white, which it's not really white, it's all colors put together. All colors put together it represents the idea that it has the potential for everything. Anything can happen to it. And if you want to finish off like the way the Radha says, and people messed it up, but not necessarily. Just the point is that the Indian of white is that it includes everything. Not like the Radha was saying that it was nice and then people messed it up. He's just saying that it includes all different colors. There's another interesting nukuda that the Radha brings in Ois Nun Hey, if you want to look at it. He brings from the Mordechai in Meseches Chulin. This is more halachadik. There's a mitzvah called Kisei Adam. We're going to learn more about it, I think, in Parak Tes, in Parak Dev. There's a mitzvah called Kisei Adam, that when you shecht a chaya or an oif, so you have to cover the blood of the chaya or oif. You have to cover it v'chisahu be'ofar. You have to cover it in dirt, in dirt. It says the Mordechai in the name of the Go'inim. Mordechai is in Mesachas Chulin in Parak Kisei Adam. That's the parak that talks about these halachas. It says that if you cover something with, you can also cover it with sheleg. Shenamar kila sheleg yomer havei aretz. He brings the pasuk that our Medrash brings. Sheleg is called dirt, which is a very interesting idea. Sheleg is called dirt. That's what the Mordechai says. And the Radal brings that the Beis Yosef over in Yerdei and Siman Chav Ches, which talks about Hilchos Kisei Adam. So the Beis Yosef says that no, it's not true, because we don't see in the pasuk that snow is called dirt. First of all, it says Kila Sheleg Yomer Havei Eretz. It says Eretz. It doesn't say dirt. Yeah, if you look in our Medrash, it says that it's Nasa Ofar Haaretz. But also, you don't see that Sheleg is called dirt. It says that from the Sheleg Hashem created the Eretz. It's not that the Sheleg is also called Eretz. So the Beis Yosef says that it's not necessarily true. Matter of fact, in the Shulchan Aruch, he doesn't bring anything about using snow for Kisei Adam. He doesn't say yes or no. The Darkei Moshe, this gets interesting. The Darkei Moshe, in when he's talking about Kisei Adam, he brings in the name of the Or Zarua, that the Or Zarua said in the name of the Go'inim, these same Go'inim, says that some people say that you're allowed to use sheleg for Kisei Adam, but it's a mistake. They're making a mistake because it's going to melt, and if it melts, then it's not covered anymore. So therefore you can't use it. But there's no such thing as the way the Pri Megadim says that there's no halacha that it has to be that it's going to be covered forever. But he says he understood that they're more saying that that's not called covering it if it's something that's going to melt. So he says that you shouldn't do it. L'maisa the Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch says don't use snow for Kisei Adam. But the Pri Megadim says that if you do, if you're in a case of Shasid Chak, he says you could do Kisei Adam with snow, but you shouldn't make a bracha. And also the Orach Chaim in Pri Torah also says that if somebody did Kisei Adam with snow and now you want to do a real Kisei Adam on that thing, you shouldn't make a bracha because it could be that the first guy was Yotze. So it's interesting. It's like in halacha.
It discusses this in that is it considered that you did the mitzvah if you covered the dam and then wind came along and blew it off?
Right.
And there's a debate about it.
Yes, the Gemara does discuss that. I don't remember what the Gemara says, but I remember the Gemara does discuss that. Okay, let's go weiter. I don't exactly understand what this is saying over here, but we'll try to understand it. Basically, what it's going to say is that the heavens is somehow like a tent over the eretz. So, like a tent, the canopy of a tent is sort of tied down to the bottom so that it won't fly away. So it says Kurkasei Hashamayim. These rings that hold down the Shemayim, bimeme ukyanos hemachuzim. They're in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean. Shememe ukyanos ben kutzeis haaretz leven kutzeis hashemayim, ameme ukyanos hen prusim. Because the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, is between the Eretz and the Shemayim, and hen prusim. Sorry, and the Shemayim is sort of spread over the mei ukyanos, over the ocean. Shneimar hamekora b'mayim al Yosef. HaMikara, it's talking about the Shemayim, and the Shemayim is Mikara, like a kore, like a roof, B'mayim Aliyah a roof over the water. Toichen Shel Shemayim, Oile Lamala, let's say the inner of Shemayim goes upwards, is above. Kadorim Hi Ka'oil Prusa, it's round, like a spread out tent. What does that mean? He explains that the edges, let's say like this. Look, the edges of the Shemayim are like somehow like this, below the horizon, let's say, or below the ocean, and then it goes up like this. It's like you were under the ocean or under the eretz. I don't know what this means. I'm just explaining what the words are saying. And the inside is lamala. That's what it's saying. And all people live under that canopy. That's how the Shemayim is. The edges on the bottom and the inside is on top. I don't know what that means, but so we'll just, if you have a better understanding, please speak up.
It sounds like if they hold that the earth is round,
yeah,
that the edges would have to be on the bottom but almost touching each other, so that everything else was on top. Everything that was in between would be lamala, but that's the only way it gets round.
I don't know.
Like this, and you have a half of a sphere.
Dimension.
Huh?
I think it's 3D kafa from above.
Yeah, but if you're like horizontal, if you have the edges being horizontal, like on the table, one over there and one over there, then the best you can do is get a semicircle. No. You get a dome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about the other side? How about China?
I don't know if it really means that there's like actual. I don't think it really means that there's like actual rings holding it down. I think it's just saying like a mashal, like just like a tent goes like this, so the Shemayim goes like this over the eretz, and it could be a full circle. It doesn't. I don't think that. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, I think that
It's a mashal.
it's a mashal. I don't know what the nimshal is exactly, but okay. I really want to finish the parak because.
For a second, I was thinking he was talking about the cycle of
Got it,
water. It was in the bottom, and then it was the mala. So I'm thinking, I thought he was talking about something else, but it's talking about Adama, so it's really confusing.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
You know what I mean? I thought he was talking about only water. Then the water was inside, and then inside went up. I was like, maybe they're talking about the flow of water when it evaporates.
That actually we're gonna speak about that next week. That's a very interesting how Picadillos deals with that.
Yeah, but it's not here.
Right. But let's just sort of try to make a run for it. Abaruch is Ba'alam. There's 4 directions in the world. Ruach Pinas HaMizrach, east. Ruach Pinas HaMarav, west. Ruach Pinas HaDarim, the wind from the south. Ruach Pinas HaTzafon, the wind from the north. Ruach Pinas HaMizrach Misham Ha'ar Yetzel Olam. The wind from the east. That's the side that the sun comes from. Ruach Pinas HaDarim Misham Talale Bracha V'Gishrei Bracha Yetzel Olam. The wind that comes from the south. That's where Tilale bracha, the dew of bracha and the rain of bracha comes down to the world. Ruach Pinas HaMarav, the wind coming from the west, Misham Cheshech Yetzel Olam. That's where the darkness comes to the world. Ruach Pinas HaTzafon, the wind coming from the north. Misham Eitzres HaShaleg, that's where the storage houses of snow is, like the North Pole. V'Eitzres HaBorad, and the storage houses of Borad. What's the word I'm looking for? Hail. V'koyer and v'choyim u'geshamim yetzim l'olam, and that's where they heat and coldness, and that's what sort of makes climate changes. The ruach from the Pinas HaTzafon.
So global warming is coming from there.
That's what they tie now. They say that the ice caps are like melting, and that's causing different things to happen.
The ozone layer from the Arctic Ocean is melting, and that goes down to the Atlantic Ocean, which affects the.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know exactly.
They said that in 1995.
And then really what's happening is for carrot.
In 96 there's a blizzard.
Right. But whatever.
But there wasn't pattern because 97 repeated on itself. 3 years, one back and forth.
Yeah.
They had a point.
Kol shel davar, we don't know what we're talking about. Davar acher, this is what mamash what we were just saying, the way I understand it. Davar acher, another explanation. Ruach pinas atzafin, the northern wind, bara v'le gemara. Hashem created it, but He didn't finish creating it. Amar, Hashem said, Shekol mi sheyamer shehu Eloka. Anyone who says that He's God, so you finish. You want to say you're God? You finish creating the northern wind. If you do a kol shu Eloka, then you show everyone that you're really God. Oh, you can't do it? Oh, we see that you're not really God. This is a very interesting idea. I have a mahalach maybe to understand it a little bit better. I don't know, Birshus, maybe I'll say such a mahalach. The Gemara in Yevamos says that the reason why Klal Yisrael didn't do bris milah when they were in the midbar is because the ruach's finest didn't blow, and therefore it was a sakana for them to do bris milah, because the northern wind has special powers that can heal people. So the way I want to explain this medrash is that when Hashem created the ruach's finest, the wind of the northern wind, He put in it a koyach that it could give healing and heal people. But He didn't make it that this ruach could heal people in ganzen in the way that there's no maladies and there's no diseases and there are no illnesses anymore. He left it that there are illnesses and there are sicknesses in the world. Why? So that if someone wants to come and say, "Look, I'm God," so that okay, so heal all the sick people in the world. You can't. So that proves that you're not God. That's why I want to understand the medrash. And we see this mamish bizmanenu, where we have, like, let's say scientists that come and they create people and make clones and all kinds of different things and all kinds of scientific advancements. But at the end of the day, we're also still susceptible to the same diseases and sicknesses that scientists don't know how to heal. We have Ebola breakout in the world, and if you're a scientist, you play around with the world. You're like God, right? So do something about it. There's nothing I can do about it, right? I think that's the pshat in the medrash. Going weiter. V'sham, we're still talking about the north side. Sham hu model mazikin v'lezaves l'ruchis v'leshedim. The north place is the place of inhabitants of mazikin and different spirits and shedim and also Santa Claus, right? Yeah. Labrokim, v'laramim, lightning and thunder, misham ra yesis la'ilam, and that's where the bad comes from. The north, yeah. Shedemar mitzafon tipota hara. From the north, that's where the ra comes. Tzafon in Lashon HaKodesh means hidden, and it also means north, hidden and north. You have to know what the Pasha Pshat in hidden and north is, because in the north, that's where the sun is hidden. The sun is the weakest in the north. That's why it's very cold, because the sun is very shvach. But also it has to do with the what's it called? With the Yetzer Hara, who's called the hidden one. But we're not going to be married about that now. But the world was created with 10 utterances. It's a Mishnah also in Alvis in Perek Hey in the beginning. The Mishnah says, why did Hashem create the world with 10 utterances? So the Mishnah says, to punish the Rishayim who messed up the world that was created with 10 utterances, or to give schar to the tzaddikim who were mekayim the world that was created with 10 utterances. The point is to make it more serious. It was 10 utterances. It wasn't just like one utterance that Hashem created the world. It was a real ve'elohein, and the Medrash lists them off. In other places, Chazal also tried listing them off in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Lamed Beis. But the Medrash says like this: Vayomer Elokim hi or, that's 1. Vayomer Elokim hi rakia, 2. Vayomer Elokim hi kavul hamayim, 3. Vayomer Elokim tachei haaretz. Vayomer Elokim hi ba'oretz. Vayomer Elokim yishutru hamayim. Vayomer Elokim teitzei haaretz. Vayomer Elokim nase adam. Vayomer Elokim hinei nasati lachem. Vayomer Elokim lo yitev hayetz adam levada. These are the 10 utterances according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara in Maseches Rosh Hashanah doesn't count Vayomer Elokim hinei nasati lachem, which is when Hashem told Adam not to eat from the Eitz Hadas. There, the Gemara didn't count that as one of the 10. Instead, the Gemara said that Bereshis, the word Bereshis itself, is one of the 10. Okay. Included in these 10 utterances is 3 concepts. Or Hashem used 3 concepts in order to create the world. Ve'elohein, these are the 3 concepts. V'chachma, uv'svuna, v'das. With knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge. also known as Chochma Bina V'das, Rosh Tevas Chabad, right? Shneimar Hashem b'Chochma Yasad Eretz Keinin Shemayim B'Svuna B'Daitei Taimis Nivku. Hashem established the world with Chochma. He planned the world with Hashem b'Chochma Yasad Eretz. He established the Eretz with Chochma. Keinin Shemayim B'Svuna. He planned the Shemayim with Tvuna, with Bina. B'Daitei Taimis Nivku. And with his das, the depths were brought down. Mishkan. Also, these three things were used by Bitzalel when he was creating the Mishkan. The Mishkan, he had these three. Milas Shenemar va'amali yisur ruach elikim b'chochma v'svuna v'das. Hashem filled Bitzalel ben Uri ben Chur l'mata Yehuda with these three concepts: chochma, tvuna, and das. Ubeshoshan nasa Beis Hamikdash. Also, the Beis Hamikdash was done with these three things. Shenemar ben isha almanu hu mimata naftali va'aviv ish reish necheshes. There was a man who was the son of a widow from the Shevet of Naphtali. It's talking about Chiram. There's two Chirams. Whatever. Because there was two Chirams. One of them was from Naphtali. One was the king of Tzur, and he was the Ish Charish Necheshes. He knew how to. He was a smith, a coppersmith, whatever. V'yimali is a Chochma ve'es a Tvuna ve'es a Das. And Hashem gave him Chochma, Tvuna, and Das. Ubishashanat libanas. And the Beis Hamikdash is destined to be built with these three concepts as well. Shene'emar b'Chochma yibone bayis. With Chochma Hashem will build the house. U'v'Tvuna is Kainan, and it'll be planned with Tvuna. U'v'das chadarim yimalu. And with Das, the rooms will be filled. U'v'shoshan asalitin shalosh b'atanas teves l'Yisrael. And with these three things, Hashem is going to give good presents to Klal Yisrael. It sounds like it's talking about la'asud lavai, but I think that maybe it's talking about when the Klal Yisrael was in the Midbar and Hashem gave them the Mon, the Be'er, and the Anania Kovid, which the Gemara in Taanis Daf Tesam and Aleph says that these are Matanas Toivus. This is the same lashon. But could be Pashas. It's just talking about something la'asud lavaya. What? It says la'as, but could be it's talking about la'asid from, let's say, from Bria Sa'olam. Yeah, I'm not sure. But in the context, it sounds like it's talking about L'mais HaMashiach. Shenemar, ki Hashem yiten chachma b'piv das u'tzvuna. Hashem is going to give chachma, and from his mouth, from the mouth of Hashem, he's going to give das u'tzvuna. U'shlashan kefulas nini l'melech HaMashiach. And these three things doubled, Hashem is going to give to Melech HaMashiach. Meaning Hashem is going to give 6 things to Melech HaMashiach, including these 3 things plus another 3 things. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, famous pasuk, v'noch alav ruach Hashem, ruach chachma u'bina, ruach etzah gvura, ruach das v'yas Hashem. It'll come upon Mashiach, ruach Hashem, ruach chachma u'bina. These are 2 things. Ruach etzah gvura, ability to give etzah and power. Ruach das is the 3rd one. V'yiras Hashem and Yiras Hashem. So it's going to be 3 things of Chachma Bina Das plus Etzah Gvura and Yiras Hashem, and that's what's going to be with Melech HaMashiach. He should come hopefully this week. Be'ezras Hashem b'meherav yameinu amen.